Last but not least, we have a special guest here with us today who is going to give us an introductory keynote to open this session. It's my pleasure to welcome David Chaum, founder at XX Network. Hi, David, welcome.
It's a great pleasure to be here with all of you, and I'm particularly happy to be back in Berlin. You know, I was in Berlin when the wall fell, and actually I was in Berlin before that, on the way to East Germany. I spent time in East Germany before the wall fell, in Dresden and so on, and I can tell you that was a life-changing experience. The difference between West Berlin and East Germany at the time was just stunning, and it's something that stays with you. The chilling effect that the surveillance apparatus there had on that society made any kind of interaction with people just very, very different. And you could just see it in the people's faces. It was incredible. And, you know, in those days, it was in the West, you know, we had more or less excellent privacy because you would send letters, you know, you could meet people, you know, it was analog telephony, nothing was really, much was being recorded. You meet people in person all the time. And so you had privacy in your communication, not only what was said, but who you talked to and when. That was all off the record. There was no record of it. Whereas, you know, if you try to institute a mass surveillance in a situation like that, it was very obvious, like in East Germany. You couldn't do it secretly. It took a massive apparatus. And so, you know, there's another important thing that happened in Berlin. The first real digital computer was built in someone's home. And this is a real engineering feat using relays. And you know, there's a lot of this has changed the world dramatically. But there's another piece of the puzzle that was really needed to really change the world dramatically, and that is the internet. And the internet is, to my mind, it is not just the digitalization of communication, but it is a massive engineering success to basically packetize information. To form UDP packets, they have what's called a packet routing network. And that's what was invented in 1965, and that's what dominates all global communication. It's a huge win. The guy who proposed this in 1965, Donald Davies, who I knew pretty well, proposed it as a way to have England dominate global computer technology. He said that they should build the infrastructure for packet switch network for England, and that would give them a dominant role globally in computer technology. And if they had, they probably would have had it. But now what happened was another guy also thought of the same packet switching at the same time. He's a guy who lived in his office just a few miles from my home here, where I'm talking from, and where I grew up. Also went to school at UCLA, very near their offices at the Rand Corporation. They did all kinds of fiendish stuff for the, you know, war movement during the 60s, right? As a military think tank, I believe. In any event, he wrote, oh yeah, you can do packet switching, but there's an issue of what he called traffic analysis, which is the military term for spying on who talks to whom and when, because they know that that's one of the most useful types of surveillance you can do. And when the US pulled ahead building out packet switching with the ARPA network, famously, the standards, the RFCs, you can go back and look at the one written by Steve Kent and the various versions of it, and his predecessor from the Naval Research Laboratory. they banned any kind of what I would call blinded routing. It mandated the whole design of the internet has baked into it what you might call transparent routing. It's a packet switching network. That's the old term. I guess you could just call it transparent routing. In other words, every it's containerized like shipping containers, right? Every message is in a package, and I think of it as a little bus. And at the front of the bus, it says, we're coming from this city and we're going to that city, and these are the stops we've made along the way. That's mandated. That's part of the rules of the road. And then when you get to like a roundabout in England, then it would, might come out of that roundabout in one of several directions. But back in the old days, when there was no way to really trace all this stuff, there was no worry. And even when you could imagine that someone could trace it all, the idea that someone could really analyze it and make sense of it and would care also made no sense. But now this has all been disproven and changed, because we have, the United States has admitted, and I think some other countries have, it's believe that they have a global full take surveillance capability, and they can see all the buses and read all the headers, where they're going and came from, and everything, everything. And when you start to combine that with big data and machine learning and AI and all this, and you start to realize how much money you can make by advertising to people selectively, and then by informing them selectively and manipulating and dividing people up into different groups, so treat them differently. It's had a really devastating effect on the world, and I think the public's waking up to that, has woken up to that. And so this idea of all these buses of information proudly displaying their whole path has proven to be really useful to exploit the public and make a ton of money by the people who put this all together. But what it's not, this transparent routing is not suitable for business, to make, to have exchanges, to, for a company, they have suppliers, they have customers, they have people that work with them. All the communication with all those parties, they cannot afford for that to be known to their competitors. Look at the difference between an annual report of a company and what you could figure out if you knew everyone they talked to and when. You could see all of their failed efforts and where the research and development was going and who their customers are, and everything about them, and so forth. So if in economics, markets are a key thing, and they don't work when you can see what the position everyone has is, and so forth. And then when if participants in foreign countries and so on can collude, there's trouble. So there's really, you cannot, this transparent routing is now no longer suitable for making money, business, commerce, enterprise. And so actually, when I was at Berkeley in 1979, I read this paper by Paul Barron, and I thought, there's got to be a way to stop this. And I came up with mixing. And mixing there's a couple different flavors, but it remains the only known way that's at all compatible with packet, with routing with packet switch networks to hide from a global surveillance capability who's talking to whom and when. So that was published, in 79, 82. So that was like, say, 15, 20 years after the original publication and promulgation of packet switching. And until only a few years ago, it remained kind of impractically slow because so hop would have to do a lot of encryption. So recently I found a way to speed it up by a factor of 1,000. And that's what we've built at XX Network. And it's now running on 500 nodes with a good geographic dispersion around the world. And we've processed, I think it's hundreds of billions of messages, 200 billion messages so far. You can see it on the dashboard. And so the way to think of it, when, I always think of these buses when it comes to packet routing, because Donald Davies told me he loved taking bus trips around the world, to see cities and stuff. So anyways, the blind routing, which is what I invented, the mixing, and we've now found a way to speed up, is you could think of it as simply like this, that there's segments of highway where there are tunnels, right? But these are multi-lane tunnels, and you're allowed to have unmarked buses. And so when a herd of unmarked buses go into a multi-lane tunnel, they can come out in a different order, a random order. And you can't see that from the satellites or from, if you're trying to surveil them. So basically, the way XX Network works is that we found a way, unlike, like when you used to come from East Germany to West Berlin, you had to wait in line for like sometimes hours. These buses now with my 1000x speed up don't get slowed down. They just go straight through those tunnels at highway speed, but they can rearrange the order. And that's really necessary for the kind of latency, the delays that people are become accustomed to and are willing to accept in messaging, and also obviously for any kind of transactions, which is a lot of what blockchain in our space is about. So we're thrilled at XX to be part of this space and providing a better platform, a necessary platform for any kind of business activity or transactions, whether they're personal or company. There's a lot of, I could speak at length about the advantages to individuals of this, but I think that's relatively goes without saying. But if you want to have a really successful decentralized world, then you can't build it on transparent routing. You have to build it on blinded routing.